Good morning. Last year I presented on the overall energetic importance of Cape Cod Bay to the North Atlantic right whales, touching on how right whales targeted aggregations of numerically non-dominant prey relative to the bay-wide zooplankton composition, how Cape Cod Bay provides patches of high caloric resource over the winter and spring, and how this resource is based on specific zooplankton dominance through the season. I'm back to focus on comparing caloric concentrations with energetic needs per demographic group in order to determine if there are differences in demographic preferences based in the Cape Cod Bay habitat. We developed an equation on ranking the patches that right whales were feeding upon based on the caloric values. We call this ranking the Yum factor. Before I begin, please do not share via social media. Thank you. First, a little background information about right whale energy needs. Fortune et al. Analyzed the energy requirements for the North Atlantic right whales and found low variation among the sexes and age demographics, except for lactating females with the highest energy requirements. Juveniles were the second highest at 2100 megajoules. Based on this information, plus the information from our previous research on the dominant species right whales are consuming within their food resource in Cape Cod Bay, we set out to mine our extensive zooplankton database, in particular focusing on the plankton samples taken in the path of skim-feeding right whales, and identifying the estimated caloric composition of the samples to populate our equation. So to test the theory that lactating females and juveniles are seeking higher caloric and denser patches, we devised a way to assess the quality of the patches in Cape Cod Bay based on the potential energy consumption available for adults, juveniles, and lactating females. We formulated a factor labeled the Y factor using a multivariate metric involving the caloric rank and proportions of taxon per sample. The caloric rank consists of the zooplankton abundance of the three main copepod groups right whales have been feeding upon in Cape Cod Bay: Calanus fimarchicus, Pseudocalanus complex, and Centropoges, with their estimated average caloric value. The proportions value combines the proportions of the three taxa in each sample. This creates a rank of the calories per meter cubed of the patch they were feeding upon. First, some general analysis of the samples. We used 201 zooplankton samples taken in the path of skim-feeding right whales between 2001 and 2024. Number of samples per group are located at the top. Overall, the rank of patches range from 2.61 to 4.79. Here you can see the Yum factor or Y factor grouped by the dominant taxon in the samples, with a significant higher ranking from Calanus dominated samples than from samples dominated by Centropoges or Pseudocalanus. This is to be expected due to the higher caloric values of the Calanus species compared to the other two taxon. Here we have the Y factor over the season, January through May. As expected, the Y factor increases significantly as the season progresses, where high caloric and abundance is seen. I teased out the dominant species, showing the progression of the dominance over the season. Here we have the Y factor by year. Over time, the samples dominated by Calanus and Centropoges samples have not changed much over the years, while the Pseudocalanus dominant samples have increased significantly. This is different from the bay-wide resource, where Centropoges was seen to be significantly increasing. Future research will focus on what is driving the Pseudocalanus increase in those patches. Finally, looking at the demographics, we included all whales within 300 meters of the focal animal and attributed the patched characteristics to them as well, due to the assumption of the right whales feeding on the same composition and density as the focal animal. We shortened the time range to 2001 to 2003 and boosted our sample size to 468. This graph shows the ranking for the groups adults, juveniles, and lactating females, with males and females teased out. Number of samples per group are located at the top. There was a similar mean across the board, between 3.77 and 3.89. While no significant difference among the groups, two things stand out. There is a larger variation for males and then from females, and narrower range for lactating females due to the timing within the bay. In summary, there appears to be a slight difference in food preference between demographic groups. It is inconclusive if right whales are feeding on what is available or seeking out higher caloric denser patches due to our data being biased by opportunistic sampling and where the majority of samples were collected during the season, mostly in April. So we need to run further statistics. Future work will focus on how the Y factor changes based on calendar stages and on the individual right whale assessment and preferences. Thank you to the colleagues and funders for all of their support through the years.